Thank you very much for making this time to have a conversation with us. So you're aware that we are at the moment at the threshold of another Tata Sustainability Month. I had a few questions, if it's okay.
Sure. Thanks, Chacko.
So on a personal front, what is this one conscious shift that you've made that has changed how you understand decarbonisation or circular economies or nature of biodiversity? One thing that you've done personally.
So, obviously this is a change which dawns on you and you make multiple changes. So if I were to think of a couple of things, let me put it that way.
Right.
One is what I mentioned last year. I've consciously gone off paper in some sense of the term. Try to use less and less paper, use the electronic media more and more. The other part which I think has been happening over the years and I'm very conscious now is how do I cut down on my consumption? How can you use your products longer? So wherever I can, I try and do it. As an example, the car that I use in Jamshedpur is now 11 years old. The office bag that I was using, I've just changed it last week after 12 years.
Wow.
Right? So I try and do that. The other thing which my wife Ruchi and me, we've started doing every year is go through the house and give away stuff that we are not using, and which also encourages us to buy less. So things like that. So I think you make these changes which opens your mind to the possibilities and hopefully in some sense helps you reduce the footprint that you leave behind as an individual.
A few questions around work and business. Your vision on sustainability for Tata Steel, and I know it has to align to Project Aalingana, but you would have some secret sauce, which is because when we talk about sustainability, the first company that comes up and strikes you is Tata Steel.
So at the overall level, like you said, we are aligned to the Aalingana goals, and so that's a lot of challenge anyway ahead of us. But at a very fundamental level, how do we pivot from being a steel company which has operated in a linear value chain for more than 100 years to pivot to a circular value chain?
Right.
I think if we can make that shift, it will not happen overnight. So in Europe, as you're aware, we are already moving from a linear value chain to a circular value chain. We've already made that shift in the UK where we've closed the blast furnaces and we are building an electric arc furnace. In Netherlands, we are in conversation with the Dutch government to do the similar thing. So by 2035, we won't have any blast furnaces operating in Europe, So from producing 10 million tons of steel using blast furnaces, we'll be producing 10 million tons of steel using alternate process routes which are greener. We set up a recycling plant a few years back near Delhi. We're setting up a recycling-based steel-making unit in Ludhiana, which will be ready by the end of this financial year. So we're making that shift. So, already you will see in the next 10-15 years, 10-15 million tons of Tata Steel's production will be through the recycling route. And if over the next few decades we can shift entirely into the recycling route, I think that'll be a great achievement for a company like Tata Steel in a growing market which has been used to a linear value chain for a very long time. So linearity to circularity is one shift we are making.
Wonderful. And your challenges as you see, I think you didn't make a mention on the electric arc furnaces, but Tata Steel's challenges on decarbonisation. Would you like to just speak about it?
No, it's a complex transition, right? We should not underestimate the cost and complexity of this transition. It's going to cost us to make more steel this way, through this process route, than through the old process route, right? So in Europe, you have a policy framework which supports you on some of those costs. You have governments willing to provide you some grants if you make that transition. You have customers willing to pay you more. And then as a company, you need to put in the rest, right? So that's one challenge. The viability of the new process route is going to be tested unless there is support from all the stakeholders. There's no business case for a steel company to do it by themselves, right? Mm-hmm. So dealing with that. Secondly, all the steels that our customers want cannot easily be made through the recycling route. So you need to do a lot more product development, a lot more R&D, etc., right? And you're competing with a world where there's a lot of steel being produced through the other methods,
yes,
right? And ours is a global industry where 400 million tons of steel flows across borders. So you have to be competitive and survive in the marketplace while at the same time making this transition. And when you make this transition, you're deploying a lot of capital without growth, because this capital is being deployed to close one process route and build another process route, and you're not really investing to grow the top line in some sense. In fact, if at all, your bottom line gets impacted because the costs go up. So it's a very complex journey, but I think as a group, we are always committed to do what is right. Oftentimes, even before the law requires us to do it, and that's a responsibility Tata Steel has and will discharge.
Tata Steel has always stood for nation building. In your perspective, how are sustainability efforts evolved from environmental imperatives to a platform for industrial innovation and most importantly, equitable opportunity that is being given?
Yeah. So absolutely, while we started with the spirit of nation building, I think we also started with the spirit of saying the community is not just another stakeholder, but the very purpose of our existence, which allowed us the social license to operate in some of the poorest parts of the country, right? Without the challenges that some of the corporates have faced in those regions. So there's a lot of opportunity for innovation, and since we're building new capacities, we can also build them by optimizing around these factors.
And just going back into your personal beliefs once again, was there ever a moment in your personal life where the concept of carbon footprint, circular economy, or diversity, biodiversity, preserving biodiversity became tangible, right? Not as data, but actually more of a responsibility, something that you wanted to do because of something that happened?
Yeah. I think for me, the journey started maybe about 8-9 years back. It was actually on one of these trips to Davos.
Okay.
And Al Gore, and of course it was well after the Inconvenient Truth and everything else, but the whole discussion around digitization and sustainability was happening quite a bit 10 years back in Davos, when it was not yet, at least sustainability was not yet such a big topic in India. It was more seen as something which the Western world was using to hold back India. You know, at that time, we had not even signed up on Paris, right?
Yeah.
So there was a lot more suspicion than commitment that we are on this journey. But I think that was, for me, it opened up my eyes on what was happening. I started reading about it, watching stuff on it. And then you honestly realize the impact that our so-called development has had on the ecosystem. We consume for multiple reasons, you know, sometimes to hoard, sometimes to show off, sometimes for many things. But as you transform process industry, whether it's cement or steel and things like that, the challenge is much more.
Yes.
Right? So I think there are a lot of challenges around it. As you read about it, as you watch stuff, I think it opens up your mind, and then it also encourages you to do what can be done, because the enormity of it is huge. So all of us need to do what we can do.
Thank you. What has nature taught you about balance between abundance and enough? I think you have
I gave this example. Also, we deal a lot with the tribal communities, for instance.
Yes.
They are a great example of living efficiently off the land. There's so much we need to learn from them. There is the other way around. I think we will evolve by learning so much from the tribal communities.
Yes.
So I think there's so much to learn. If you go out there, I think a lot of solutions are out there. We've just forgotten them as we kind of, if I call it, developed in inverted commas. And now we need to go back to our roots and understand how to lead life more efficiently.
Beautiful. Last question from you. When the story of our climate journey is told decades from now, what is the legacy you hope Tata and each of its people will be remembered for? What is your vision for the role we must play and in enabling a sustainable tomorrow?
I think one of the values of a group which all of us are proud of and probably don't talk enough of is pioneering, right? And I think we've been pioneering 100 years back in nation building, in building industries where there were none, doing what is right for the nation. We were also pioneering because of the way we looked at communities, right? So I think we can lead the way, be pioneering at least in India on the sustainability journey. We are not the first on this journey, there are many others on it, but we can easily do a lot more simply because of the footprint that we have, the kind of industries we are in, and our legacy and history of doing things even before it is required by law. I think we can also play a very big role in educating the ecosystem that we are connected with, the supply chains, because there are thousands of small and medium-sized companies who deal with us, right? So I think Tata Group, given its ethos, given its the structure that we have, the way we have an enormous footprint, can play a very, very important pioneering role. And I think Tata Steel certainly can do its bit. And that's what I think I would like Tata Group, Tata Steel, the employees of Tata Steel all to be remembered as people who've taken this corporate citizenship, as something very seriously and been pioneering about the way we did it.
Thank you very much for your time, Naren. It's all, as usual, it's always been a pleasure talking to you, getting educated on sustainability and all matters world. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chacko. Thank you for having me on the show.